Hi everyone and welcome back to episode 3 of season 4 of the Nichi Bei Cafe. We want to thank all of you for tuning in and supporting us on our journey to document Japanese and Japanese American lifestyle. So let's get to it. Starting off with our pastry selection tonight, our Southern California contributing writer and videographer, Akira Olivia Kumamoto, sat down with one of the third generation co-owners of San Gabriel Nursery, Mary Ishihara Swanton, to learn about the nursery's legacy in Southern California. Please enjoy.
Come with Nichi Bei as we tour the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist in San Gabriel, California. The establishment is one of the oldest and largest nurseries and florists in Southern California. It was founded by Fred and Mitoko Yoshimura in 1923 as Mission Nursery. During World War II, the Yoshimuras were incarcerated in American concentration camps. The business was sold off, and after the war, the family started their nursery in a new location on San Gabriel Boulevard where it stands today.
This is the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist, and it started with my grandparents, Fred Waichi and Mitoko Yoshimura, in 1923. So in 2023, we had our 100th anniversary. This picture was taken on the other side of the street. Because before World War II, we were located across the street. And then when the bombing of Pearl Harbor happened, my grandfather was, taken away because he was a Japanese community leader for our centennial, and kind of just different things. So we were called Mission Nursery before the war. What happened was my grandmother sold the inventory to Manchester Bodie, who owned what became Descanso Gardens. Somewhere in the 1960s, my Uncle Raymond, both he and Ichiro went to Ohio State after serving in the military under the GI Bill. They were able to go to Ohio State, and he hybridized the Mission Bell azalea, which we had a patent on and trademarked.
Though they offer an array of plants, they are best known for their hybrid azaleas, specifically the Mission Bell azaleas, which are named for their bell-shaped flower and their origin in San Gabriel. The nursery also touts an extensive collection of bonsais. In 1956, Mr. Yoshimura hired a specialist to help create the collection.
And this is our bonsai section. Back in the 1950s, I think, my grandfather wanted to increase the bonsai collection to introduce this art form to American public.
Prior to single-use plastics existing, the employees would give customers their plants straight from the soil.
So what happened after they returned from camp, they as a way to make quick cash, they planted pansies in the ground, and they're not in like the regular bedding plant. Nice plastic things they have now. They used to have to go and dig them up. The customer would point, I want this one and this one, and they'd have to go dig them up for them. So we have like these signs and stuff. So that's they used to be in the mission. I guess the San Gabriel Mission used to have a parade, so they used to participate.
With spring right around the corner, enjoy the sights of San Gabriel Nursery's loveliest offerings. be sure to visit San Gabriel Nursery and Florist at 632 South San Gabriel Boulevard in San Gabriel, California.
Thanks, Akira, for that interview. And for those of you that are interested in checking out the San Gabriel Nursery, just go ahead and visit sgnursery.com. For our salad, our team of staff writer Tomo Hirai and producer Greg Valoria visit with Bradley Yamamoto, president of MIF Insurance Agency, a longtime agent serving the Japanese American community for more than 80 years. Bradley shares some ways of navigating today's insurance landscape. Please enjoy.
In January 2025, a series of wildfires caused unprecedented damage across LA and San Diego. In spite of scientific evidence linking the rising threat of natural disasters to the climate crisis, the Trump administration plans to deregulate oil, gas, and auto industries while hobbling the government's ability to regulate, research, and provide disaster relief. Nichi Bei news reporter Tomo Hirai interviewed Bradley Yamamoto, MIF Insurance Agency President, to discuss how the homeowners insurance industry has reacted to the rising threat of natural disasters and to give some tips on how to drive down your insurance costs.
I've been working with MIF Insurance for about 20 years or so, on and off various roles, but I took over as president in 2021. Our agency has been around for over 80 years, and we really were founded right after World War II, when it was really difficult for Japanese Americans to procure insurance. So there was a big need for our agency, and we've been servicing the San Francisco and Bay Area since then. We service both individuals for their automobile or homeowners needs, and also commercial clients for their businesses, autos, workers' comp, things like that. For our agency itself, we rely heavily off of referrals. So all of the business that we generate is because our clients are happy with our service and they recommend us to somebody else. Really, our main goal is just customer driven, and we want to make sure that each of our clients feels comfortable in knowing what insurance they have and what it will do for them in the event of a loss. So basically the companies now are tightening up their underwriting guidelines, and what they're looking for is which homes pose the largest risk to them. And so unfortunately in the Bay Area we have a lot of older homes, so those are going to be subject to more scrutiny. The biggest challenge right now is for the people in what are deemed high brush areas, where you see a lot of foliage and things like that. Some insurance carriers are pulling out of that area altogether, or at least just eliminating the zip code from where they're writing insurance. So in those instances, people in those areas really have to be aware of their policies being in jeopardy. The best way to go about that is to be proactive, contact your agent, see if there's other possible insurance companies that might be willing to write it as a backup, and just shop around really at this time.
Bradley explains that insurance companies are imposing stricter property inspections, such as using satellite imagery, in-person inspections, exterior inspections via drive-by, asking homeowners to take photographs of their homes, and even interior inspections have become more common.
At this point in time, we just don't know. There's so many different working parts. There's companies that are exiting California. There's some that are putting holds on where areas that they'll write in. Some are still dipping their toe as to whether or not they'll come back, but they're putting tighter underwriting restrictions on these properties. And then in addition to that, the Department of Insurance is working on all these different state legislations that are trying to help it so that insurance companies are more motivated to write policies. But again, we don't know how that's going to really impact the market. So the best thing that we can hope for really at this point is for it to just kind of flatten out first and then kind of take it from there.
Most insurance companies use replacement cost estimator software to calculate how much it would cost to rebuild your home from the ground up in the event of a loss. The estimate is based on your home's location, size, and the year it was built. The software isn't completely accurate, so it's best to consult your insurance broker to determine your coverage needs.
So for myself, for example, I'm not immune to what's going on in the insurance market. I actually had to replace my own homeowner's insurance. And so throughout that process, it made me reevaluate how much coverage I needed in various areas. For the most part, the policies in California are pretty standardized, where you base your coverage off of the amount of coverage you need on the dwelling itself, which is in the event, let's say a catastrophic loss happened, a fire burned down your entire house, and you had to rebuild it from the ground up. How much coverage would you need? And from there are additional coverages built into the policy that are basically percentages of that dwelling coverage. So let's say, for example, you needed $1 million to rebuild your home. The various coverages would be percentages of that. So you'd have your personal property percentage, which would be 60-70% of that dwelling coverage limit. So you might be looking at about 607 or 700,000 in personal property coverage, and that's automatically included generally in the pricing. Well, first off, one of the best ways to actually keep your insurance down, if you're lucky enough to still have your policy in place, would be to seek out higher deductibles. In general, the higher deductibles you go, the lower your premiums will be. And the reason being is that the insurance companies are viewing kind of the small claims as negatives on your account. So the more small claims that you put in, the more jeopardy you put yourself at risk of the company possibly non-renewing you. So if you're not going to put in these small claims anyways, you might as well take advantage of some of the savings. Generally, our clients are choosing somewhere around the range of a $2,500 deductible. There are options for higher, but it really depends on your risk retention.
Some insurance companies offer discounts for forms of membership such as AAA and Costco, discounts for home improvement products for water leak detection, home security insurance, wind and fire mitigation and certain roofing upgrades, and discounts for insurance bundles, for example, getting auto, homeowners, and life insurance from the same company.
The biggest thing, honestly, is finding a good insurance agent. You really need to be able to trust that person, that they're giving you all the correct information, letting you know if your policy suits you and what exactly you're looking at.
To contact MIF Insurance, call 1-800-747-6434 or email info@mifinsurance.com. This has been Max Nihei for Tomo Hirai for Nichi Bei Cafe.
A grateful thanks to Bradley for being available for this last segment. Now for our chef special tonight, Tomo and Greg visit an exhibit at the Berkeley Historical Society called Roots, Removal, and Resistance, Japanese Americans in Berkeley. This exhibit chronicles the Japanese American roots throughout Berkeley, but also highlights a carefully documented database of Japanese Americans in Berkeley, California. They talk with the curators and residents who have their families' treasures in this exhibit. Please enjoy, and we hope that you can find this segment enlightening.
When Michael Severall moved to Berkeley 4 years ago, he learned he bought a house across the street from where author Yoshiko Uchida once lived. The discovery made him wonder if Berkeley could do something similar to the Stolpersteiner memorials in Europe.
2011, I was in Germany and I learned about this incredible memorial project, the Stolpersteiner, these little brass plaques. I mean, there's one up here on this panel, these little brass plaques that were put in the sidewalks where Jews lived who were exterminated. So this little bit of information was kind of in my mind. When I moved to Berkeley, I thought, wouldn't it be great to put, little plaques in front of all the houses? And of course, that's not doable. But I thought maybe I'll do a digital Stolpersteiner. Have a little goal each day, and I literally worked on it for over 2 years, every day.
Janine Castillo-Lynn, first vice president of the Berkeley Historical Society's board, said the exhibit's idea followed the previous exhibit of Chinese and Chinese Americans in Berkeley. When a member of the curatorial team suggested an exhibit on Japanese Americans having attended the Daruma no Gakko as a child.
Well, the previous exhibit was on Chinese Americans in Berkeley, and my husband is Chinese, so I was very involved in that. And afterwards, one of the members of our curatorial team, she's Chinese American, but she had gone to Garum no Gakko summer program, and she suggested, so why don't we do an exhibit on Japanese Americans? And I was actually aware of Michael's database. He had told me about it, so that was a part of my thinking about doing this exhibit.
Several people from the community worked on the exhibit, like Nichi Bei board chair Nancy Ukai and Arlene Makita Acuna, who helped put together the exhibit featuring the past and present history of Berkeley's Japanese American community.
Well, from February, a bunch of us were called by the Berkeley Historical Society Museum group here to help put together an exhibit on the history of Japanese in Berkeley. So that's how it started. We began in February of this year, and we worked very hard doing research, talking to a lot of people in the community, and digging. Actually, this first panel is an overview, an introductory overview of the exhibit. The Here Lived is a very central part of this exhibit, which is based on an extraordinary database. And then there's a business and housing and community organizations, and then there's the incarceration, evacuation and incarceration wall, and the activism wall. So we've got 5 panels. And then, of course, we have artifacts throughout. Casas, the Japanese umbrellas, both my mother's old ones from the 30s when she was visiting Japan for several years, and then a newer one by a local artist. And then we have artwork in the cases by local Japanese American artists.
The data several compiled helped clarify and contextualize Berkeley's Japanese American community for David Ushijima, one of the volunteers who helped curate the exhibit. Ushijima, originally from the Alameda and Oakland, California areas, said he became interested in the Berkeley Japanese American community after marrying his wife, whose family had lived in Berkeley for 5 generations.
But when I saw Michael's list, they had sent me the email of the names. This was before it was formatted. And when I started scrolling through the names, I mean, it was kind of overwhelming. The number of names and the number of people that I recognized, like my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, the family members of their family, and members of the Berkeley Buddhist Temple that had gone back, generations. And many of them had passed away. And when I was scrolling through this list, I was thinking, I really need to get involved to help bring out some of the stories. Well, originally I had seen the work that Joe Shiraki did with the Japantown project, California Japantowns, and one of the maps happened to be Berkeley. So this map right here. And when I started looking at the map, this was back some time ago, I noticed all these businesses that I never had known were here before. But that was kind of an impetus for me to try to get involved in the business and community. So one of the areas, of course, was redlining that we covered. And I had known of the existence of redlining in Berkeley because I had been fairly active in the South Berkeley project around the Ashby BART station. So when I looked at, the addresses that Michael had put together on his list, and I overlaid that on top of the business list, I started realizing there were all these pockets, communities of Japanese American families that I had never known existed.
The Fujii family has been in Berkeley for 5 generations and once ran a laundry business on Shattuck Avenue. The Fujii family, together with the Tokunaga, Tsubamoto, Kimbara, and Imamura families, ran a cooperative out of the now historically landmark building at 2526 and 30 Shattuck Avenue. Leslie Tsukamoto, granddaughter of Kurosaburo and Kokuyo Fujii, recounts those times.
The women did the cooking and some of the lighter laundry work, and the men did the heavy work and delivering such. So I think, not having a lot of formal education, but they were very entrepreneurial in their own way, yes. My parents purchased a home in 1952 on Hopkins Street, which was still in the red zone, I guess, or below the red line. but it was a very integrated neighborhood. I went to Franklin School, and it was a very integrated class. So, you know, there were Chinese, Japanese, Hispanics, African Americans, white students. You know, we had a very, I think, a very nice childhood.
The database addresses include 1822 University Avenue, where Issei Yoshio Oyamada ran a nursery. Kazuko Iwahashi, Oyamada's 95-year-old daughter, remembers her childhood in Berkeley.
My mother was actually born here, so she was a Kibei Nisei. My father was born in Japan and came over by himself when he was about 16 years old. Taken in 1937, it said. That was when that's my brother. I'm the one in the middle, and it's my next sister. So the family goes, I was the oldest, then Akiko, and then my brother Seiji, and then Michi was born later.
Judy Fujimoto and her cousin Gary Tominaga recounted their family's history. Their grandparents, Chiyo and Yotaro Tominaga, moved to Berkeley in 1937. While the family was incarcerated in Topaz, Utah, the family eventually returned to Berkeley after the war, although some were released to Chicago like Tominaga's parents. The family was able to reclaim their homes after the war, and their Sansei children grew up in the Red Line neighborhoods of South Berkeley, which Fujimoto said they were proud of.
I think we really enjoyed it. As I said, among my Sansei cousins, it started a discussion, sometimes by text, sometimes by email, sometimes actually talking to each other about our memories about growing up in the town. And how much we appreciated, I think, remembering our parents and our grandparents over this whole venture.
We're very honored to have the Tominaga family be one of the families up here.
Yes, we are, very much so.
As with the Chinese American exhibit, it's been really moving to see the community see themselves on the wall. I mean, that's kind of the feeling that I've gotten, like, wow, here's our family, here's our history, here's our experience on the wall. And so, yeah, very, very moving.
The exhibit Roots, Removal, and Resistance will be running until August 30th of 2025. The Berkeley Historical Society and Museum is located in downtown Berkeley in the Veterans Memorial Building at 1931 Center Street, 1.5 blocks west of downtown Berkeley's BART station, and across from the Civic Center Park from Berkeley High School. Hours are Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and donations are always gratefully accepted. This is Greg Valoria for Tomo Hirai for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
Special thanks to the Berkeley Historical Society for access, and of course to the numerous people who helped curate the exhibit. And as said in this piece, the exhibit is running through August 30th, 2025. Just a reminder, you can read in-depth articles about these segments in our community news publication, including the upcoming Japanese Culture and Cherry Blossom Festivals Guide. To do so, please be sure to become a member of the Nichi Bei Foundation, where you can receive your copy of the Nichi Bei News at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. Next up, during our successful trip to Southern California for the Films of Remembrance event, we caught up with Keiji Uesugi, landscape architect and son of the designer of the award-winning James Irvine Japanese Garden in Los Angeles' Little Tokyo. Keiji explains how his father, Takeo Uesugi, harmonized the Japanese garden aesthetic in an urban environment. Please enjoy.
The Nichi Bei Cafe crew, while in Southern California for our Films of Remembrance, visited the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center and its James Irvine Japanese Garden, where we caught up with Keiji Uesugi, son of landscape architect Dr. Takeo Uesugi, who originally designed the garden.
Well, we're in the James Irvine Garden at the Japanese American Cultural Community Center in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. Its Japanese garden name is Seiryuen, which means clear water garden. And so my connection to the garden is that it was designed by my father, Dr. Takeo Uesugi, passed away in 2015. In terms of our family's legacy, he was a 14th generation Japanese garden designer. So his grandfather was a Japanese gardener, and so by my work I do as a 15th generation Japanese garden designer. It's been going for hundreds of years in our family. But he designed this around the time when I was born, in the mid-1970s, during that time when there were efforts for community redevelopment. Part of that was like the little Tokyo towers being constructed to provide affordable housing. And then also the JACCC providing this cultural and community center really started to gain momentum. And as part of that community center, having a Japanese garden being articulating and symbolizing the legacy of the Japanese American community and experience was part of that plan. And so there were various leaders of the community that came together and decided on who was going to design the garden, how would they fund it. And as far as the designer was concerned, they spoke with my father, and then he developed various concepts, and then it came to a design that was created here. In terms of the Seiryuen here, they didn't want to build or design a Japanese garden that was just a copy paste of a garden from Japan. That wouldn't really make sense or tell the story of the Japanese American experience. And so my father, being a Shin Issei, a first generation, wasn't all that familiar with the Japanese American history that predated World War II. But he did a lot of research, study, and spoke with various people to learn about the multi-generational legacy of the Japanese American community. And so he designed this garden here with Japanese garden design principles, but based on the history of the Japanese American community. And so that makes it a very unique and the first of its kind Japanese garden of North America. What makes it a Japanese American garden in that respect as well, the basic concept of this garden is based on the multiple generations that go to the immigrants, the Issei, back from the late 19th or early 20th century, coming to the United States for the first time, primarily through California, and then going along the West Coast. If you go to the very top where there's a very tremendous waterfall, a lot of noise and this ripple effect, very mountainous, but then it represents the challenges that the Issei, the Japanese immigrants went through in terms of adversity, in terms of trying to financially make it here, not because they weren't working hard, but a lot of the discriminatory practices, systemic racism, that they had to face, including the Alien Land Law Act. There was an Immigration Act in 1924 that stopped immigration from Japan altogether, and so there were just and then, of course, anti-Japanese sentiment was very rampant, across the coast and the country as well. That's that first part of the garden here, but then it splits into two, and that represents the challenges and the trauma that the Nisei, the second generation, faced as we come to World War II and the dividing road that happened as you have those who patriotically fought in the 442nd in the European campaign, but also you have those who were standing up against the injustice of being incarcerated in the incarceration camps, and then you have the no-no boys, who were had another level of that type of negativity that they had to try to fight against, because a lot of people saw them as being very unpatriotic, and for decades they had to live with that stigma. Why does it come back? It comes back together just right here, right behind me, to symbolize the optimism for the next generation, the third generation, the Sansei, who in the 1960s and 70s, many of them learning for the first time what happened to their parents, their grandparents in incarceration. Many of them were in college when they learned that they were born in incarceration camps. It's just camp. The fact that they took that as inspiration to fight for their parents and their grandparents, the injustice that happened, and for as that Asian American movement going into the redress movement, and I think that's connection and the streams coming together to show that the Japanese American community coming back together again. And then the optimism as that water goes under the Maple Bridge here and turns the building off to the side right here to show that the story is not complete yet. And so to show that, like the community story is still to be written and to see it with hope.
The garden is not regularly accessible to the public, but contact the JACCC at 213-628-2725 or send an inquiry to info@jaccc.org. This is Greg Valoria for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
Many thanks to Keiji for his time while we were in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. Next up, we share some noteworthy stories from the Community News Files. Director, just do it.
Next is our News Bites, highlighting events over the past month or so, including stories from the pages of the Nichi Bei News. Let's roll the News Bites, please.
So let's roll the News Bites. The News Bites rolling. Everyone is welcome at Minasan in San Jose's J-Town, which opened on January 11th. Brendan Boone, Michelle Ng Boone, and Michael Bui sell clothes, records, and more. The shop, a community hangout spot, has an arcade game and a film projector. Check it out at 210 Jackson Street in San Jose's Japantown.
I think that's some of the most gratifying experiences for me, is somebody coming in here, find a piece of something that they grew up with in outer space.
The Pike Place Market Foundation's Executive Director Lillian Sherman decided to resign effective March 7th, as reported by a spokesperson to Nichi Bei News. Weeks earlier, the organization rescinded its offer to host Tsuru for Solidarity's Day of Remembrance program, commemorating the wartime incarceration of Japanese Americans, 12 days before the February 19th event. The foundation previously told the Nichi Bei News that the messaging and strategy around resistance was challenging for us as an organization. The event, which had a Stop Repeating History theme, was held at Chio's Garden in Seattle's Chinatown International District instead. Dignitaries and community leaders celebrated the latest Japantenna pop-up at the Japantown Cultural District Visitor Center in the Japan Center East Mall in San Francisco's Japantown on February 28th. The exhibit was dedicated to the upcoming World Expo in Osaka and the Kansai region. The expo will run from April 13th to October 13th at Umeshima Island in the Osaka Bay Area and emphasize sustainability.
You can experience the latest technology, so you can actually explore what the future will be like.
From the Nichi Bei Foundation's Films of Remembrance initiative comes an exciting and revolutionary new resource: the creation of an on-demand online film archive that will make films on the wartime incarceration experience of Japanese Americans accessible to any viewer around the world. Featuring many of the past 120 plus films featured at previous Films of Remembrance events to be updated regularly, including classic films. It is gratefully supported by the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation and the California State Library. For more up-to-date news like this, please be sure to subscribe to the Nichi Bei News, carrying on a legacy of 125 years of community leadership through media at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us for our third episode of Season 4. We hope that you enjoyed what we and, of course, all of our featured chefs cooked up for the cafe menu today, featuring stories from our annual Home and Garden issue. And at this point, we want to give a big thanks to the Henry and Tomoya Takahashi Charitable Foundation for their continued support of the cafe. We're always appreciative of our collaboration with you and finding new ways to engage with our Nikkei community. We would like to thank everyone for continuing to support our YouTube channel and hope you enjoy our future content featuring our Japanese and Japanese American community. So please continue to support us by telling your friends, family, and loved ones to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this episode, and comment down below. And of course, to stay in the know of more happenings in the Japanese American community, please consider becoming a member of our Nichi Bei community to help support what we do here at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. A lot of things are happening in the community. Next up, we will present a calendar of upcoming events. For our salad selection, we connect with a longtime Japanese, Hi everyone and welcome back to, it's episode 3, right? Many thanks to Keiji for his time while we were in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. Yeah, appreciate the time. Featuring our annual Films of Remembrance.
Guess we missed that.
Menu today featuring our home and garden issue. Wait, hold on. No, it's like I'm reading it, but it's like not the words that I'm reading.
That's not natural.
Being literate sucks.